Hey guys, how y'all doing? My name is Kieran, and this is Foxoff RPG. So today I'm joined by Todd. I'm going to say it wrong yet again. Ritzia?
Close. Ritzema.
Ritzema. Duh. So today we're going to be talking about his products, which are going to be Horde Wars and Dropship. Dropship
Yeah.
hasn't come out yet, and we have talked about this and looked at stuff behind the scenes before, and I'm absolutely loving the idea of it. It runs on the same premise and system, the D12s that you have for Horde Wars and Horde Wars Advanced. And yeah, thank you for coming in. And if you want to introduce yourself a little bit as well, go ahead.
Well, thanks for having me. My name's Todd. I go by DM Blackwall online. So my co-author Nate and I wrote a game called Horde Wars. We had a basic version come out a couple of years ago, and the advanced version, which is the full game in a single book, came out 9 months ago on PDF and about 6 months ago physically. So if you haven't heard of it, I hope you check it out. It's a D12 based medieval fantasy RPG. Plays pretty fast at the table, especially compared to something like D&D or Pathfinder. And as some of our acquaintances online have checked, actually follow the rules. It'll play faster than if you try to add stuff in.
We have it like who is it? Adrian of Dungeons and Alexa.
Yeah.
And obviously, the Black Lodge Games guys have played it quite a good bit as well. But I have a review on Horde Wars Advanced if you want to check it out. We also this is our second interview and talk. So if you want to check the first one, go ahead. But do so after you watch this one. Always stick with the latest.
Oh, also, if you happen to be in the United States, I should mention we are currently doing a sale on our softcover books. They're $15 off until September 24th. Hardcovers are going to stay at the same price, in part because we're doing international shipping, and in part because production costs have actually gone up on those. So the price is just staying the same currently.
Hey, it's better than going up. That's awesome. Because I know you guys. If I see it, I always repost any things you have on X or anything like that. But yeah, so would you like to talk about Dropship a little bit, maybe?
Sure. What kind of stuff are you interested in? We've looked at it a little bit. Like, what were your impressions of kind of what we looked at?
Yeah, for anyone obviously no one's going to know this, but we were looking at stuff behind the scenes before, and we were looking at some of the races you have, how combat kind of works, which is really interesting. If you want to maybe talk about that, because you have two different kinds of combat within the game. You have the large scale, and you're going to have like sort of smaller skirmishy scale. One's going to be in space, and the other's going to be planet side, which is really cool. So it keeps things interesting for players as well as a DM.
So the idea is you'd either be playing one character who is good or like reasonably good in both space and ground-based combat, or you would make two characters, one of whom would be like you're a member of the space navy, as it were, fighting for humanity against the aliens and or the insurrectionists, but mostly the aliens. And the other character would be a member of the Marines, who is being dropped off mostly on human worlds that have been conquered by aliens and trying to retake those worlds, or spy on the enemy position, or rescue people, possibly like extract scientists who have been captured, or down pilots, or this sort of thing. Kind of standard military stuff. Our mission generator is actually based off a list, actually a couple lists of missions the U.S. military actually sends soldiers on. And so you'll get a decent variety. And the same is true for the starship scale, where you are being sent on missions, sometimes to conquer a system, sometimes to spy on it, or arrange an insertion of some Marines to do something. Sometimes you're attempting to capture an enemy starbase, or potentially do a variety of other things. We should have enough content that if you decide you want to take these rules and play space exploration in the game, you can do that. But it's not what the rules are for. They can do it, but the rules are for an existential crisis in which humanity has spread to the stars to planted maybe 100 colonies, and is now down to about a dozen as we are being conquered from all directions by different aliens. Some from further in the galactic center, some from the right, some from the left, some from out further in the galactic arm that we're in, and so on. So there are 7 different alien factions to fight, all of whom are gobbling up human space to varying degrees. One is less united in that. Some of them might trade with you if you're lucky, or they'll rob you or kill you. It's kind of a toss-up. But so you might be able to get along with the Knicks occasionally, but the others are basically bent on conquest, whether it's economic exploitation like the Balmori or the Freylar want to do, or whether it is consuming humans as food like the Krill would like to do. We're somewhere in between.
Yeah, and that's one thing which I think is great. You have, like you say, you have 7 races or so at the moment, and
it's more. It's 7 factions because some of them are multi-species. Yeah.
Okay, you see, that's my mistake. So you have 7 factions, and there's more. Oh yeah, because more races between. Because someone will use the other races as sort of like servants almost.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's me. I remember now. But you have those factions, and they all play different. They fight different, and both in the obviously the space combat and the land-based combat, which is pretty cool. It's going to keep things interesting. And again, the way combat works in space is so cool. It sounds like it's relatively simple, but can be what's the word I'm trying to think of? Dynamic as well. So it's like so if you have 2 ships and they're both moving, you fire, but you're not firing where they are. You're going firing where they're gonna be and hoping that they're not gonna exactly like change direction and stuff like that. Correct?
Well, in reality, that's what's happening. If this was a real combat, yes. In terms of how the game works, we are assuming the crews are not incompetent morons, and that they're aiming correctly and trying to kill the target. You know.
Okay.
The trick is, though, that it uses the same general core mechanics as far compared to Horde Wars in terms of how does turn order work, right? For the players versus game master. But the main difference is each starship has a limited number of actions it can take, and the player characters can choose to use one of their actions to have their starship take one of its actions. So if the players have just one very small starship, they actually have less fighting capability in space. They actually want to get a bigger, stronger ship. Like mechanically, they're motivated to do it, or to do boarding actions in space. So some of them are actually boarding the enemy while some of them are controlling their main ship, or to have starfighter squadrons and launch squadron of fighters to go fight the enemy. And we found that this worked pretty well. Most of our combats are going to be typically 2 to 6 capital ships on a given side, or 1 to 6 capital ships on a given side, and potentially dozens or scores of fighters. You can play larger combats out, but as you can imagine, if you decide to have 30 to 50 ships on a given side, that is going to slow down gameplay a little bit. Because that's a thing you'll have decided to do.
Bigger number makes things harder. It's the basic maths.
But we found some ways to streamline the combat, and like inertia is a different rule than, of course, that you're going to see in normal human scale, character scale combat. And so essentially at the beginning of each round of starship combat, all of the ships drift in the direction of their last movement at that speed. And you basically cannot stop in space unless you use a starship action to make a full stop. And this is those 2 things really help the combat feel like you're fighting in space. Now, we make certain assumptions, one of which is that we do not have building acceleration during combat. You could, of course, build acceleration, and we do assume that when you're flying to another star system. But because of the nature of human reaction times and even just the ability of electronics to respond, if you decided to just burn in a straight line in a fight and your opponent has weapons that have reasonable range relative to your speeds, they're going to be able to basically stick the attack right where you're going to be, and you'll just die. That would actually be a suicidal move, unless you started with the enemy having no idea you were there, build up a really high speed, and just do basically a drive-by. Short of that, that basically if two sides are fighting on purpose in space, none of them are going to be trying to burn at max speed other than to get away. Because among other things, we're assuming that you're actively trying to avoid enemy fire, and that would mean you wouldn't be building up inertia because you'd be going in different directions constantly.
Kind of think of like submarine combat, maybe. The best way for people to understand the idea behind it.
Well, and of course we have and we do play into that a little bit with the idea of running dark, so that essentially it's really hard to spot an enemy ship if they are disciplined. And so being able to run dark means you can get pretty close to an enemy before they realize you're there, and then potentially start a fight by ambush. You can also, of course, use cover and various things to hide as well. But if you're far enough away that they don't know where you are, and then you just basically turn off everything and drift with your previous inertia, you can be a very unpleasant surprise.
Yeah, or they could be a very unpleasant surprise as well.
That's true, though not as often for the players, because they're defending like a fixed position, usually at the character scale. But when they're on a starship, they're usually out attacking the enemy or possibly defending an allied emplacement. Usually the player character's ship is mobile enough that enemy ships moving dark are less likely to hurt them unless they get caught like at a friendly space station and parked, basically. However, they will occasionally get ambushed that way. And then, of course, because it's a classic trope, we've got things like cloaking devices, which one of the alien factions
that's one thing I was going to bring up as well, is that the fact that ships can have different sort of loadouts and modifications on them.
Oh, yeah.
Which will then make not only the enemy ships, but your own ships have a sense of constant progress. Are you trying to get new things, or you buy things, rob things, find things, which is another form of loot within the game as well. You can have which is pretty damn cool. Because then you have to take into account when you talk about like the player level, like the man-to-man level gameplay. I'm assume you're going to have something similar with that, like with different weapons.
Oh yeah. But for the space stuff, let me
two sort of like gameplay things, which is pretty cool, and there's always a sense of progress.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'll show you a little bit of that in a sec, but let me show you. I'll quick pull up the Starship Rules draft for a moment. This is not the final formatting, but if you want to share that,
I'll try it up now.
I think I can zoom in a little, but not a lot. Yeah. That's about...
I can make us disappear, I think. Can I?
Maybe. I'm sure there's a button for it. I mean, that's bigger.
A little bit bigger. There we go. I think that's the best I can do at the moment.
So if we scroll down, you'll see some highlights and stuff. But just to give you an idea of the scale, here are some of the distances we're using.
Oh, yeah.
To explain movement in space.
Yeah. Space is a big empty. It's called space for a reason. There's a lot of it.
It's quite a bit. So each combat space at the starship scale is 1.5 million combat spaces at the character scale.
Count those squares, lads. Come on, count them. Or hexes.
Yeah. That's why we're actually using the term combat space, because we use a mixture of hex and square based maps, and this makes it a fairly seamless transition. But then if we go to the weapons ranges over here on the right, and you're going to see you're typically fighting within 2 light seconds or less of the enemy. in part because you're in 5 light second rounds, or 5 second rounds. So anything further out than 5 light seconds just wouldn't, your attack wouldn't even get there.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Even if you could like perfectly initiate it with no delay at all, which is just quite unrealistic. So typically weapon ranges cap out around 1 or 2 light seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those combat spaces at the starship scale is, again, about 2,000 miles. These are not small spaces. It's also why starships can share spaces, because that would make sense.
Yeah, because otherwise you need like, oh, hey, you go to that end of the football field, I'll go to that end of the football field, and this is our scale.
Yeah. But if you were talking about, oh, go ahead.
No, okay. So it's just making it make sense for the players and stuff like that. You say, okay, so it's just like if you're playing a normal fantasy game, you're gonna have some games where the hexes are going to be 6 miles and some where they're going to be 24 miles. You're using the same principle, but you're just saying these are the size of them and this is how far you can go within them. So it might sound a bit overwhelming at first, but just think about it that same way and it's fine.
Exactly. Now, in terms of customization, now this section, we're just talking about the basic ship systems. Stuff like airlocks, communications arrays, life support, power core, sensors and how those work, star drives, sublight engines, flight decks, shuttle bays, so on. Modules,
things that
though,
make a ship a ship.
Things that make a ship, and most of them have unique actions that you can take or things you can do, like transferring drive fuel, doing gravity braking instead of using your ship's main engine to brake, which is drive braking. You can actually use a star to slow down. And this is like explaining here are some options and upsides and downsides to both. But you were talking about customization. So down here, modules, this is one of the main ways to customize your ship. Basically, all of these are fairly power intensive systems to run, and your ship can only support a limited number. It varies a little, but broadly speaking, it's about 1 module per ship class, where ship classes are 1 to 5. A few can hold more, a few can hold less, but broadly, that's correct. And so if you look, we have 25 of them listed here. We only ever be able to have somewhere between, probably 2 to 5 on your ship.
Yeah.
The engineer, or rather the mechanic, as we used engineer one too many times, we're like, we need to rename the career. The mechanic at a high level actually gets the ability to exceed the limit normally caused by the ship's power supply. He can add 1 additional module.
He's like a mad scientist. He's got like, I have an idea.
Yeah.
It might drain things, but I have an idea.
And then if we scroll down here, there are a bunch of starship weapons that you can find. These are the starting human ones up at the top. And then down here are some of the alien weapons.
That's one thing I want to mention when we're talking about this now is the aliens have a different types of weapons based on their faction.
Yeah.
Which adds a complete, so you can have something that's similar but has a different effect on how it works within the game. So again, all these layers of different modifications, different weapons, they're adding more variety. And you might come across the same like similar fleet of ships together that are your enemies, but they could be loaded out completely different. So you don't really know what's going to be what you're going to get yourself into. So they actually might be much more tougher or much more offensively more powerful than you previously encountered.
Yeah. And then here's a thing that we did that isn't actually true, but we decided it should be true in the game world, which is we decided that any missile tube can fire any missile.
Okay, yeah.
That isn't true in real life. However, some form of standardization of munitions would make sense for the humans internally. And if the aliens are doing it where they trade with each other sometimes, some standardization for them would make sense. And that they happen to be close enough is simply something we decided to make things easy and clear.
Yeah, otherwise you're just going to be micromanaging things on the, but you don't need to. Yeah, it just makes this another layer you don't need to have.
Yeah. And here are things you can do with your cargo bay. You can actually convert it for other purposes. Of course, then you don't have as much room for loot or extra supplies. You're just stuck with the baseline supplies for your ship. But you can do stuff like making cell blocks, passenger cabins, the ability to deploy star bases. You still have to buy the star base, though.
Yeah. I just reading that there, and I just laugh because I can think of a fella I know. If he was the captain, he'd be like, luxury cabin over here, prisoner cells over here, and I can gloat all day. You'd get well into that.
That'd be good.
Oh.
Be good. Extra fuel tanks. But if we go down here, now I haven't filled out the pricing on each of them yet, but here is the base statistics for all of the different kinds of ships. So this is right here, just as the class 1s in this section.
Yep. There's quite a few, even within that one class.
Yeah.
And they have different. They're meant for different purposes, of course. Like your dropship is literally fermenting for getting into planetside, and then your advanced fighter is obviously an advanced fighter. It's meant for going around doing intense combat maneuvers and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the interceptor fighter is faster and more lightly armored. The heavy fighter is slower and relatively heavily armored, and so on. The swarm fighter takes half the space on the flight deck. So if you don't care that much about your pilots, well...
I remember we talked about this before, and I was like, oh, yeah, they're going to be like a bunch of hornets just coming at you.
Oh, yeah. The krill especially. They're an insectoid species, and they don't, need... Basically, they can take huge casualties and bounce back real quick.
Yeah, reproduction is very high.
Yeah. So here's the class 2s, just to give you a sense.
And obviously you have your cargo space they can hold, the amount of modules, the weapons they can have on them at any given time, the amount of hit points, defense, speed, all that information's there in these just handful of columns.
Yeah, and the speed numbers...
Short, sweet, snappy.
Thank you. Yeah, the speed numbers might look low, but that's because you have to remember, if someone is actively trying to accelerate, they're actually going to get triple that number of real movement, because they'll get the base speed, they'll be able to take an action to move again, and then they'll also have that inertia the beginning of the following round. And so even though the speeds might say somewhere between like 2 and 5, in reality, the speeds are more like 4 to 15, depending on what you're doing. On a gridded map or on a hex map. Same deal here, class 3s, which are basically cruisers, a light carrier, and then a couple of different kinds of starbase.
Nice. Spaceport. Everyone wants a spaceport. That's everyone's goal now. Get a spaceport, lads. So you can talk your ship there, refuel.
Class 4s. Class 4, same deal. But you got battle cruiser, battle carrier, command carrier, dreadnought, shipyard, star fortress, and then the class 5s, which are just insane. Stuff like an artificial moon.
Artificial moon. I wonder what that's inspired by.
A few
all this. I love all this stuff. Because like again, before we talked about some of this stuff before a couple months ago, twice. One was a bit briefer, the other one's a bit more in depth, and it was so cool. And I'm remembering more and more of it now as we talk.
Well, thanks, man.
Oh, yeah.
Now here's a quick example. If you look on the right, that is the entire stat block for a Discovery class shuttle.
Yeah, it's all very concise.
And so it's very easy for you, the game master, to build your own if you want to. But we plan to provide, I think it's 73 ship stat blocks and then a bunch of star bases as well, adding up to over 100 stat blocks just in this chapter here.
And this is going to make it so if you're brand new, you do not have to come up with your own stuff, and you can ease yourself into that over time as well, which is obviously, that's the best way to go about things, having an easement into new things. Because otherwise, I feel a bit overwhelmed, but you have given people a ton of options.
Oh yeah, that's very much the intent.
Yeah.
Now if I jump down here to like an enemy faction, let me get past these guys. The Krill, we were talking about those guys. So
Yeah.
just as an example of one of the factions, this is an insectoid species. So they've got their own custom dropship with magnetic grapplers. So it's really good at boarding actions, clamping onto your ship so they can get guys on your ship. And hilariously, their weak fighters are meant for pretty similar work. They don't bother with shields or anything. They also have grapplers.
The whole idea is that they hook onto you and then just like ram into you, basically.
Hook
And
onto
like,
you and then board you and consume the crew.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. They're very nice people. You can have them as great neighbors. They won't do anything dodgy. I swear. Your dogs
You
and
can
cats
have
will be
them
safe.
over for dinner and you'll be very surprised because you'll be the dinner. And then they've got the interceptors, which are more powerful fighters that that the more elite krill will use, which are equipped with missiles and actually have shields.
And if you notice, for people who are watching, it just gives you the different types of again, the weapons they're going to be using. They're all named different things for different species as well, which is pretty cool. And they're going to have, like we said before, they'll have different kinds of effects based on the faction. I say species, but I mean, faction. It's just habits.
Yeah, well, it's often species. It's sometimes that they're including others. But then you've got this fuel refinery, which is a light freighter built for creating and processing fuel. You've got a destroyer, you've got a strike cruiser, and you've got a hive ship. So you've got everything you need. And then down here, you've got a couple star bases as well. Most of the factions will have 3 star bases. This particular one has 2. But for a introductory game master, or for someone who's not used to running something like this, we have enough stat blocks that you can basically field a small enemy fleet or a task force and not need to make anything yourself.
Which is important.
Yeah. And then our intent is to use places like this orange bit here and the space under it to actually put in some information about how to upgrade or modify the stat blocks. Stuff like a veteran crew, what that would look like, or stuff like if we jump over also for the krill, find them a second. Here we go. So the krill also have, now we're at the character scale here, where I just jumped to, but each species has 1 or more stat blocks that is meant to give special abilities to a spaceship. In this case, if you have a krill spacer on board one of those ships, he can do charge weapons on the starship, so he can make it hit harder. And he also has these 2 abilities at the starship scale.
Okay, yeah. So jerry rig, your starship gains 20 hit points, and you may temporarily repair a disabled ship system. This temporary repair only lasts 1d4 months. It can be a jerry rig. It cannot be jerry rigged until the proper repairs are effected.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
So you can't just spam it to constantly maintain the system.
Yeah. So you're basically just constantly like Firefly type stuff. Can't constantly be doing that.
You can to buy some life, but then you'll have to
till you get to like a port or a planet to repair things properly, or maybe you can scrounge up enough money. But this is another thing, because this is another layer which will make your enemies more different. Again, you could have the same ship stat blocks, then have different enemies and stuff up on the ship, which will make them different. You have the similar thing with the players as well, which is pretty cool, because you're going to have, like you said, 2 different players going to have 2 different characters, one for ground combat and one for the spacing stuff, which again, it's going to be similar to this and the abilities and stuff they can do. Obviously, it's more player facing.
Yeah. And then if we look over here, Some of the artwork for the game has started coming in. Not all of it is in this file, but some of it is, and so I figured we could look at that a little bit.
That's awesome.
This guy is a human agent, and if you look, I'll zoom in a little, you'll see behind his ear, you've got a little hint that he's got an implant.
Yeah, a little nodule.
Yeah. Which I thought was a nice touch on the part of the artist.
Yeah, I'm already thinking of an accent for him. He's totally Russian or Polish.
I mean, that would make
sense.
Let me do this. Here we got one. This is for the Breacher career. His job is to break down enemy airlocks, break through them, and lead the way into the enemy ship.
That's cool.
This guy, we're going to do a little bit of editing for him, but he's mostly done. This is one of the bridge officers. And
I like the style of the artwork itself as well. It's different from some other stuff I've seen, because you get a lot of games where they try and call and copy each other a little bit, but this is definitely very unique. It's not like it's almost looks like it's watercolored. Almost.
Yeah, no, it's this. It's all digital art, but
yeah, I know you can have like a sort of like it looks cool anyway. That's what I mean.
Good.
It's definitely if you saw, you're not gonna be like, oh, this is from this game. I was like, no, it's actually this one. It's his own thing.
Yeah. We're gonna play around a little bit with his medallions and stuff, but basically, this is a specific admiral in universe.
Okay.
As well as being a bridge officer. This is just a piece of art we had done to show off the computer skill. Futuristic use of it.
Yeah, Minority Report sort of feel.
Yeah,
which looks cool.
And then this is a diplomat.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Svetlana. Oh, how you doing, Svetlana?
This is, I think we looked at this before. This is a view of one of the human worlds, a major city on it, called Haven. And it looks cool. It's very detailed. Like if we zoom in over here, this will come into focus.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Okay, because usually what people do is like sort of like, oh, it's just scribbles, and you zoom in and it just looks like pixels, but you can actually zoom in and you can actually see the writing on it, that's insane.
Oh, it is great. There's a lot of those in here. This is one of the. This is a heavy worlder. He's got some implants as well. Normal human with some like winter clothes. This is one of the human ground vehicles.
Nice. Sorry, I'm doing sound effects and everything. I'm sorry. I'm having. I'm just imagining things in my head. I'm looking at the image. I can think of accents and things to play when I'm playing on a board with people. Like this guy comes on and goes.
Yeah,
I'm a child.
Well, this guy, he's almost done. We're going to throw a couple of tools on him still, but he's basically the one. He is a mechanic, and we're planning to have him and the technician kind of be each other's antithesis, because their abilities can essentially counter each other. And we've asked the artist to play with that in the artwork. So my guess is the technician's going to be like a younger female or something, like to give in art contrast.
Polar opposites.
Well.
Yeah. That's cool.
And then here's a medic, ready for battle and treating the wounded.
Boom, boom. Let me heal you. Straight shot.
This is a ranger.
Yeah, in any game, I have a soft spot for any sort of ranger stealthy combat unit. Or a character. I love it. One of my favorite things to play. So I'm happy.
Well, you're probably gonna want to try a ranger sniper or possibly a ranger infiltrator then.
You see. You're, oh my god.
This guy had a little bit of detail too, but he's a smuggler. So he's got his cigarette and pistol, the important things.
I really like the uniforms that you have on these guys. They all look believable and not goofy, which is a hard thing to get right with sci-fi. Things are either way over the top, or they look way too. Oh, like this could be 5 years from now. This is like, bang on.
Nice. This guy is a sniper.
Infiltrator.
Sniper. The infiltrators actually are invisible to thermal vision and other night vision, but they're completely visible just in the daylight or if you have a flashlight. And so,
so it's a different play on the trope that you might have with other sort of things. That's cool.
Yeah. Whereas this dude's a sniper, and again, some of the detail on these. If we zoom in on that gun,
are you serious? Oh my god! Come on. Who is your artist for this? Actually, before
Simeon Cochran is the main artist.
Nice.
Which is what we're looking at Simeon stuff right Cochran. Now. Yeah, Simeon Cochran. Awesome. He did.
Simeon, you are amazing.
He does a good job. He did most of the artwork for Horde Wars Basic and about a third of the artwork for Horde Wars Advanced.
Nice.
And then this is a Wastelander human. He's probably 30.
Jesus.
They die young.
That's cool. He looks very rough and gruff.
It's their homeworld is a radioactive wasteland.
Okay, yeah. So that's why they're all like, ugh, I'm dying.
And then this is an in-universe ad to buy guns.
Awesome.
We plan to put on a facing page with some guns.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of what you'd see from like 1940s to 1950s sort of what they have on the ships on the planes. That sort of vibe. Obviously, that's what you're going for. And again, zooming in. By the way, that third one is an attack on me. Hair loss.
Is
it? Hair loss.
Signs of radiation sickness.
Oh fuck! Well, I'm done for, I think.
And then, if you look here, make the bargain. This is literally a company that wants you to, take out a loan to buy a gun.
Oh, that's good. So you're playing in with the whole like almost like a loan shark thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know. We talked before, and we were getting into it. I got more and more excited. The same thing's happening again.
That's great, man. So the intent though is to have basically some human infighting, partly because we do that normally in reality, and partly because it makes, I think, a more interesting setting. So humanity is united in the sense that no one wants to really be conquered by the aliens.
Yeah,
but the corporations based on Haven, while they do want to win the war, generally want a very different outcome than Earth wants. Earth's government wants a restoration to how things were, which is a bunch of colonies answering to Earth. The corporations want a bunch of colonies that the corporations own.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not that they want Earth dead, they want power, but they want a shift in power. And then there are human independence, because as part of losing a war, and to defend some of the more important or more populous planets, sometimes some colonies were not defended, or were defended and then abandoned when the fleets pulled back. And
they
in a few cases,
their independence. They don't trust the people who abandoned them, or
correct,
like were defeated. So yeah,
correct. In a few cases, they've successfully held out. In particular, because one rear admiral, when ordered to leave his home world's system, didn't, and so his task force of 6 ships became the core of an independence movement fleet.
Nice.
And so they are a separate faction that, again, doesn't hate Earth in the sense they want Earth to die, but they don't want to be under Earth anymore.
They have that resentment in them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
obviously.
makes sense. You guys left us
Yep.
to die because you
And
felt
we
that other
didn't.
people were more important.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So you're just building on the natural human interactions you'd have between groups and people based on what happened in the past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's not like a whole utopian sort of, oh, we've all come together to fight the evil. It's like, yeah, we've done that, but screw you.
yeah,
I don't want
yeah,
anything to do with you when we're done. Yeah. So
yeah.
again, that's cool. It's also going to create more role play sort of situation. Maybe some of your crew might be from different places.
Well, that's a thing that we actually want. So one of the things is so there's one of the subtypes of human has telepathy. And this is a really unusual thing. This is not a real thing in real life. Why? Why do they have telepathy? Well, the answer is a pollutant on one specific planet that is getting into their bodies. Those people, the people from that particular planet, have telepathy, and no other humans anywhere have it. Well, the thing is, some of them are back in Earth-controlled space. But those guys are also the core of the independence movement. And when the guys back in human space find out what happened, if you're playing one of those characters, you are now in a very interesting situation of, well, who am I really loyal to?
Yeah.
Is it to my homeworld? Or is it to humanity's homeworld? Is it to the place where my wife and kids might still be? Right?
Yeah.
Or is it to the military that I swore to obey it and be a member of?
Or from like an independence group I'm working for or with secretly,
Yeah,
You
that could
put
be.
all this together. So yeah, again, you're just because that's another thing with sci-fi, which can be hard to do, is trying to develop worlds and have things believable.
Yeah.
Mainly because you're dealing with space and you're dealing with such big distances and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
again, the way you're describing it, it's making it make sense. Again, if you're on one planet here, the corporations want to take over. Maybe the people there want the corporations to take over because like they worked well for them and they've didn't abandon them and they stuck around. They're able to help them get by. And
Yeah.
again, like I said, you have the independence groups who feel the opposite about everyone. They just want to be left alone because we were able to defend for ourselves when you thought that no one could do anything.
Yep.
Yeah, so again, you're able to populate the world with the universe, not the world, the universe, the galaxy, with
Mhm.
believable different groups of the same, people.
Yeah, I mean that's
That's
very much the intent
yeah.
because we want this to feel like a real place. And just to give you a sense, now this is going to change a little, and I'll tell you how. But let me quick. No, don't share slides. Bad computer. We don't even have a
Get the
slides
whip out, boys. Whip the computer.
There isn't even a slides program. It shouldn't be an option.
Able to put
But
the
so this table, I'll zoom in on that a little bit, is part of the um, when you want to make a random star system. Now, in general, what we want, we've hired an artist to do 2 star maps, one of the area around Earth, one
Mhm.
sector, and one of an adjacent sector where the hierarchy is. And we want to use those to show you how to roll the rest of them so that you can actually procedurally generate your own sectors of space.
Okay,
Right. So
that's
there are
cool.
some fixed points on those maps, but the rest, the intent is that you'll be populating them. And we'll
Okay,
have
I
a
like that.
few, huh?
Oh, I like that. That's
Yeah.
the stuff I like as well.
And we'll have a few fixed points for you to add. So each faction
Mhm.
will basically have 3 specific worlds or specific star systems for you to add to the procedurally generated ones,
Mhm.
if it's their area. So what will change is we're going to adjust this table to get rid of this faction column, and we're going to make a separate table for factions. And the reason
Okay.
is because this table is currently oriented for rolling a completely random player experience, which is fine. Like we want to go on a random mission to wherever. If you're playing only the like Space Marines level, if you
Yeah.
have no naval personnel, you're not worrying about the ships, you're just sticking with character scale stuff, then this works procedurally. It's fine because you get all these random missions, and who knows what the government is thinking. But
a truer statement never said.
But if you want procedural generation, what we need to do is take that faction one, put it on its own table, and then give you here's example encounters in human controlled space. Here's example encounters in hierarchy controlled space, because we're going to have a sample map for you of that. And here's random encounters just in general, if you want to play the way I described, which is the Marines only, which is fine. If you want to do that, we won't stop you. That could be quite fun. But we want to show you what a hierarchy owned space one looks like, so that you can then use that to go, okay, well, if I wanted to have Freylar controlled space, what do I have to have this column read like?
Okay.
You see what I mean? So we want to show you a human dominant one, an alien dominant one, and then a completely random one. And that will be 3 or 4 columns on a table separate from this. And then with the extra space that we gain, the intent is that I will try to embed the distance from the star of these different of the worlds potentially, but definitely the key features. So So for example, the asteroid belts vary a little bit, but are mostly the same range of distances from the star. But something like gas giants, normal gas giants, these are within a D20 astronomical units of the star. An astronomical unit, by the way, is how far the Earth is from the sun. And that number kind of represents what we see in our actual star system here. However, we have icy gas giants, which would be stuff like Neptune. Neptune, for example, is one. And those can be up to 1D100 AU away from the star.
Okay. You guys have put a lot of research in how things should be, so they make sense practically as best they can. Obviously, it's still a game as well, so you have to take that into consideration, like you did with like some of the weapon stuff or whatever, but or the other stuff. I mean, but yeah, this is definitely okay. This is cool. This is different, because a lot of people or a lot of developers, they wouldn't do that. They're like, oh, this is cool, whatever, just throw it in, just random char. But you're doing it so it actually is going to make sense based
as
on
much as we
distances
can,
or other features. Because you don't want to do it for 20 years and you learn how to be a proper like astrologist.
Astronomer. But we had a much more vigorous and detailed version of this that we decided not to put in the game. And the reason for that is because it got an overwhelming amount of detail for the players, which is good. It was very realistic as far as our current understanding of astronomy and physics and stuff. Like it created even more realistic outcomes than you'll get here. However, it also meant that you'd have like 20 different things you had to track as a player. And that's not generally, we found as a practical matter, as fun as, okay, what kind of star is it? Or maybe there's more than one. What is the most important thing about this star system that is not the planet we're trying to get to and isn't the star? And that's that second column. And then, or maybe there's 2, that's a possibility, or more. And then what kind of planet are we trying to get to? Or what's the nearest thing to a habitable world if there isn't one? And maybe there's more than one. There's like a 5% chance of that. But that's enough because that's 3 to 6 things really that you're typically tracking. That's enough that the players are able to usefully process the information and like strategically plan.
Yeah, and then not get bogged down, but like, oh yeah, what was that thing again? Or they're not writing everything down. They're like, oh yeah, we forgot about this thing. It's actually really important. Our gravity is actually half what it should have been this whole time. We kind of fucked up.
Well, and what we did is those kinds of details we embedded a little further in. And so, and just like in Horde Wars, the natural 20 will get you the rare results.
Okay, yeah. So you have like your ancient megastructures, ancient minefields, black hole pulsars, death worlds. Everyone loves a good death world. It's always fun. If you ever played any like RPG games, I mean like video games,
I
death
have,
worlds are always interesting.
but we mean something different by Death World than they mean.
Okay.
We mean
Okay.
overrun with zombies.
Oh, so a literal world of the dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Here. Okay. We're going to Evil Dead world.
Yep. The stakes were made. But we embed some of that other information. If I scroll down here to an example type of world, well, actually, before I do that, let me show you this table. Roll a d20. You got one, man? Let's randomly
Actually,
pick
don't
a
have
world.
any dice on me right now. But let's just say 15.
15. Okay. Scroll down. Look at what 15 is. A thrall world.
Okay.
Okay. So we scroll down here and we go, okay, once the players get close enough to the thrall world to know anything that matters about it, right? Once they're in sensor range, initially they probably won't be. You go, okay, what's true about a thrall world?
A troll
And
world
that's
is a
right.
planet where at least 90% of the population is enslaved or imprisoned. This could include anything from prisoners toiling in factories to slaves being worked to death in the mines. There's a 25% chance that a troll world has a low gravity, a 25% that has high gravity, and a 50% that has standard gravity. Okay, so you have extra information in there. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And we do that for each world type where we lean on,
Yeah.
it's not always gravity based, sometimes it's environment based. For example, a shattered world.
A shattered world is a shattered world was broken apart in a cataclysm. Its irregularly shaped remnants have low G and a thin atmosphere. There's a 25% chance that shattered world has a standard atmosphere instead. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have each different worlds will have different sort of things attached to them. They're not necessarily all going to be the same thing. You're going to be
Exactly.
looking at like yeah, okay. So it keeps the
Exactly.
things a bit more interesting and not just copy and paste in for the players or the game master.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this is one that we had a lot of fun with, and a couple of them have like an attached hazard. But this Sky
The
Ice world, check
Sky
that out.
Ice world.
Yeah.
A Sky Ice world's upper atmosphere is a thick layer of ice and is directly exposed to a vacuum. Okay, I cannot pronounce that word. The cryovolcanoes. It's cryo. Okay,
Those are real
cryovolcanoes.
things in our solar system.
Cryovolcanoes. Dotted the surface, trapped deep underneath the ice, is a vast liquid. Is a vast ocean of liquid water. Enormous caverns between the ice and the ocean contain a cold environment with a standard atmosphere. Advanced civilizations build star bases that connect. That's cool. That's kind of what they think is on Titan, I think, isn't it? It's basically a ice world and it has water underneath.
I think it's one of the other moons, but yeah.
Yeah.
That idea. I think Titan's the one with the methane nitrogen atmosphere.
But yeah,
but no,
that's
one
cool.
of the moons in the solar system, it appears to be like this. What we added though is we added the idea that there are caverns with gas trapped in it that are basically forming a middle layer.
Okay.
And so the Balmorey homeworld is that. And so there's one species that lives in the deep ocean. And the other species lives in the caverns.
Okay.
And they're both from that world.
Nice. So it's again, is that going to be part of the caste source system as well?
Oh, very much. And in their
Oh,
society,
yeah.
being at the
That's
bottom
awesome.
of it is the best.
That's awesome.
Because you are furthest from danger. Because at any point,
Yeah.
I mean, at any given point, if you're in the upper caverns, a crack could appear or be created in the sky, which is just ice, and you could get sucked into space and die.
Oh wow, that's definitely going to be a fun time.
But water is self-sealing, and so that will eventually patch.
And for anyone who's knows, space is very cold.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it will seal up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and so the surface Balmorey, the ones closer to the top, that species, is the lower caste, the way we would phrase it. but it's because, in part, they were defeated by the ones from deeper down, but also they're literally put in the most danger. So the least desired ones are the ones like mining near the surface.
So actually, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So did the idea of the species come first, or did the world come first, and then you sort of went from that?
Oh, for them?
Yeah.
The idea of the world came first for them, although we knew we wanted to do a species that had a cold theme. And we were like, well, okay, what would be a cool, an interesting...
cool,
yeah. What would be an interesting planet type based on what's popular in science fiction and the real kinds of planets that we can observe in our solar system? Because those are the two main sources, right?
Yeah.
We know almost nothing about planets in other solar systems in reality. We're pretty confident that there are planets there, but we're looking at basically a backlit image by a star as it goes by. Okay, there's a planet there. That's great. Do we know much about it? No. That's most of our any associated knowledge is fantasy or is based on a very loose spectrographic analysis to try to use the colors and non-visible spectrums of light to determine what that's made out of, and that is essentially there's some other detail as well, but basically that's deeply unlikely to be actually correct. I mean, it might have some details, like we could go, oh, there's some oxygen there. I mean, that might be true, but that doesn't tell you if it's liquid or gas, or if it's even particularly common.
Yeah, or what's mixed in with.
Yeah.
So, because our own world, oxygen makes up a very small percentage of our atmosphere, and relatively.
Yeah, and if you did detect a world that was like that had an atmosphere and it was all oxygen, that's basically waiting to burn.
Yeah, that's a giant bomb.
Yeah.
So smokers beware.
Don't go
that's
down
what
there.
Our planet was once like, super highly oxygenated, and you had these giant bugs and giant animals, giant trees, forests that went over most of the world, I believe, and lightning would happen and kaboom everywhere and fires.
I will say that is a possible explanation as to why there was megaflora and megafauna. I think that may be part of it, but I think it's a very different reason. In general, I think things used to be longer lived, including humans. But one of the ways you can kind of tell is the way that reptiles grow. Reptiles basically grow constantly from the time they're born, unless they're actually starving to death. From the time they're hatched, I should say, unless they're actually starving to death. So the bigger a reptile is, the older it is. You can essentially tell the age by the size. So there are T-Rexes that, as adults, capped out at about 45 feet tall, 40 feet tall. But there are also T-Rexes that capped out at 12 feet tall as adults.
Okay.
If they're reptiles, what is that? That does tell you something about their lifespan.
So it's kind of going by the thinking of crocodiles and how they keep going constantly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same is true for mammals, but to a lesser degree. And you'll notice that the ancient mammals aren't proportionally as different as the reptiles. And it's because we grow in spurts, in bursts. And so proportionally, we wouldn't lose as much size, assuming we're not starving, if we just have lowered lifespans, compared to a reptile. And I think if you pay attention to the creatures that got really, really big, and those that got kind of big, like there was a 7-foot tall beaver, it would seem. There's some physical evidence for that. That's big, but that's only like 2 or 3 times as tall as an actual beaver, and maybe 6-8 times the mass, somewhere in there.
Yeah, beavers weigh up to like 200 pounds today, so I didn't realize that until a couple months ago. I was like, whoa.
Makes sense with them
A lot of
hauling
meat
all
on
those
there.
logs.
Yeah.
There's also a
Get
lot of
jacked
fat
up.
in the beaver tail.
Oh yeah, that was survival food right there.
Yeah. But the thing
But like you
is,
had giant slots as well. You know,
sloth,
so
yeah,
that's
the
cool.
ground and tree sloths, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that proportional shrinking isn't nearly to the degree as the larger variety of Tyrannosaurus Rex and the smaller variety. And this is true for a whole bunch of creatures, including like the ancient equivalent of a crocodile versus a modern crocodile. They got much bigger, and the proportional increase in mass was significant. And this says to you, something about both the availability of food, but also I would argue their lifespans as well.
Mm. Also, oxygen would have played a big part in that as well. Higher levels of oxygen in your body, you could hold more in the blood cells and stuff like that.
To a point. The other thing is,
Yeah.
the other thing is, and this one, you're welcome to disagree with me on, and it's fine. Is if the Bible is to be believed, and I think it is. I think the Bible is true. Then originally, we, and it seems animals as well, were created perfect. We're made so that we wouldn't die. And then, after humans sinned, pretty quickly we did that, actually, then death began and entered the world. And if you read in the Bible, or if you don't trust the Bible but do trust ancient writing in general, you're welcome to check some other sources. For example, the Assyrians and Babylonians also wrote about a period before the world flooded in which humans lived incredible lifespans.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a unique claim to the Bible. I would simply say it is the most accurate. However, there's a fair amount of that sort of corroboration. I believe there's some in China as well. Now, that said, if that's the case, you can see why that explains why the bigger creatures are further from the present in the fossil record.
Yeah.
It also explains why they would have had long lifespans that then fell off, because that's what pretty much every ancient human genealogy says. Anything from what it says in the Bible to the Egyptian records. Modern Egyptologists don't basically ignore that the Egyptians claimed to have a pharaoh who lived for like 120 years, but they do claim it. So
Yeah, and then they'll believe everything else that they wrote, but they just ignore
yeah,
one or two. Yeah, okay.
yeah. So
yeah, I think that's an academia thing anyway.
yeah, and so it strains. So really, I think the fossil record is really just it's obviously what happened in the past.
Well, yeah,
but it's
a
a
snippet.
matter of interpretation as to whether or not you believe evolutionary theory, or whether you believe the Christian and Jewish creation accounts, or if you believe some other thing. There are other things. They're not as common, certainly in the West, but because essentially, and we could go into extensive detail at some time if you want, but the short version is that the fossil record is consistent with disaster. It is the nature of how fossils are created. I'm simply claiming that the disaster was much faster, that the accumulation was much quicker. But most evolutionists won't seriously claim that there weren't at least a series of disasters, because to create a fossil in the first place, you can't just have a creature laying out dead for 50,000 years, slowly rotting as dust accumulates around it, because there's nothing left. That's you can't have the corpse exposed. It has to get rapidly buried, and typically with a fair amount of pressure as well. So it can't just be rapidly buried in like an inch of soil. It has to be deep enough that predators and scavengers aren't going to get at the corpse.
Yeah.
And for long enough that it turns to rock. So this is not a. So this is not a. It requires a lack of being disturbed, but it also requires a rather abrupt burial. And of course, there are fossils of things like creatures midway through giving birth, midway through hatching from an egg, or midway through eating another fish. There's a fossil of a fish biting down on another fish halfway through swallowing it, and they were fossilized together.
That is that's like an amazing photograph.
Yeah.
Found.
Yeah.
How many like thousands of years later?
So it's very obvious that fossil, that pair of fossils, I guess, that they died rapidly because the fish didn't have time to swallow.
Didn't have time to even open his mouth again to chew.
Yeah, yeah. So anyone who's studying fossils seriously shouldn't be making the claim to you that this took, that this fossil was just sitting out for millions of years. That's not that's stupid. That is merely propaganda.
Yeah,
because that's not what happens when creatures decay. That's a denial of observable reality. But some of the other things that make it pretty obvious are things like petrified forests.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know, or if you're familiar.
Yeah, I've heard stuff, but like you find some of them in parts of Russia and stuff like that as well. They've been monitored.
Yeah. But petrified forests basically are tree trunks. A lot of them are upside down, which is interesting, where the top of the trees at the bottom, the bottom of the trees at the top. But are tree trunks that are vertical in rock, and there are layers of rock that have formed around them. Now, the trees, it's not that hard to check how old they were when they died, because like modern trees, they get tree rings. You can cross cut and look. So how old is this tree isn't a real debate, or rather, how old was it when it died isn't a real debate. The question is, how rapidly did it get buried? Mm-hmm. A lot of modern evolutionists will make the rather silly claim that it was buried over the course of tens of millions of years, because they want to imagine that each of these kind of layers of rock, of sedimentary rock, accumulated each over a series of events. Mm-hmm. Which I agree, it was a series of events. I just would argue it was a series of events that happened so quickly that the tree didn't rot. Because again, the whole tree, at least the trunk, got buried and in a series of layers of sedimentary rock and turned to stone. Mm-hmm. If part of it got buried and the rest just sat out on a dead tree for a million years, what would happen?
Mush.
Yeah, it'd get chewed up. There'd be nothing. Yeah. There'd be nothing left. So it's that sort of thing. It's that kind of basic thinking about it. And there's much more detailed scientific things, if you're ever bored, that we can discuss with it. But that's the short version. That's the main point of contention. It's a question really of, where do you derive your authority? Do you believe that the Bibles are the Word of God, and as a result is, depending on the part you're reading, potentially eyewitness testimony to some of the things it's talking about? Or do you believe modern interpretation of the past that, generally speaking, is based on a desire not to believe in God? The main proponents of evolutionary theory are atheists, because they don't have another way to explain the world. And that's been the case throughout evolutionary theory's relatively short existence. But they weren't alone. There were scholars well before that who basically believed the Earth was eternal, or that the universe was eternal. That's been proven wrong in the lab, basically in Einstein's lifetime. So a ways back for us, but not so long ago. That, in fact, no, the universe did have a beginning. And it would seem will also have an end. But there were in the past groups who were claiming that, and as a result didn't agree with the idea that the Earth had been created, because they're like, well, it's just always been here, therefore not a problem. Mm-hmm. But that is not the modern claim, partly because modern physics has shown that that is not possible. I don't know. What do you think of that stuff? I know it's not your forte, but you asked about it. So
Yeah, that's not my realm of stuff at all. I don't study either of those things. I don't read about it really.
yeah.
I'm more in my personal time outside of like hobby stuff. I read up on current events globally, so that's kind of my thing. Yeah.
Well, think about how it informs how you would write science fiction or how you'd write fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe in massive global cataclysm, like I do, you're going to have some planets in a sci-fi setting that have suffered traumatic events and have changed dramatically over the course of even a relatively short span. So that's why, for example, we're having wastelander humans who are from this planet, right? That has been irradiated by nuclear war, and their bodies have changed because everyone who couldn't survive in the radioactive environment is dead.
Yeah, and they adapted or died or adapt.
They died, and it's not really adaptation so much as just those who were more resistant to the problem lived. It wasn't like their bodies were like, oh no, radiation, let's build some new stuff and resist it. No. But the same is true for like having places where a sudden disaster has destroyed them, and you've got maybe like an isolated beacon still calling for help.
Yeah.
Disaster overtook them so quickly that that's all that's like left. That kind of thing.
Like some random outpost in Antarctica that would survive.
Yeah. Whereas if you're taking it from a much kind of slower geological timescale, you're going to tend to have just because of kind of some core assumptions, you're going to tend to have less major disasters or smaller disasters, you could say, which would be more common, but they then wouldn't be major. And so you'll get some different
not world
outcomes
ending.
in writing. What's that?
Not world ending.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas the whereas the biblical flood is basically world ending. It kills almost everything on the planet's surface. And
just to speak on that a little bit, you have pretty much every culture throughout history has had a similar story that's been passed down, and most of these cultures would have never connected with each other or seen each other or know about each other.
Yes,
that's about all I know.
No, that's
something that everyone agrees upon. That's not like that's not controversial in the slightest. Or that's weird. No, it's pretty much mainstream. Regardless.
And those same cultures tend to have stories about two other things, which is giants and dragons. And typically, it's about killing dragons, which is interesting.
Goddamn T-Rex has survived.
Oh, why not? Well, I'm not saying that they went for a swim. I'm saying if the Bible's taken seriously, they would have been on the ark. They were land creatures. But my guess would be, given the purpose, of course, of the ark, that they would have mostly been juveniles rather than adults who were on board, because the intent was to repopulate the earth for all these different animals. And you wouldn't want to start with like the equivalent of a couple in their 80s. You don't want to get the really old ones.
You don't want the super geriatrics.
No. You want like some teenagers who, in a year or two, are then going to go on to have a nice long lifespan and have lots of kids.
You want like some 17-year-olds.
Yeah. That's the situation if you take it seriously. But the other thing is, you can also take this from in a science fiction setting. Imagine that you knew a disaster was coming on your people. Do you send an equivalent like ark to space to try to save your people, your civilization, maybe some of the animals from your planet?
Superman.
Yeah.
Krypton. Yeah.
Although he was kind of a one-man show rather than an actual ark.
That's true.
But
And some other people
you,
happen to survive.
wouldn't it be cool if you could, in a sci-fi game, if you could find evidence of civilizations that either tried that or succeeded?
Yeah.
So
I
like,
wonder. You could plug that in somehow, maybe.
yeah. Well, we do have a ship class called an arc, which is loosely for that purpose, but also is basically the biggest ship that can support fighters in the game. So it can have a lot, like over 100, I think.
And have them all be swarmers.
You should, and there's even more.
Yeah. That I remember we were talking about that before. A couple months ago. I think maybe was it 3 months ago or so, or 2.5 months ago.
Yeah.
And because of having the big ship, if you wanted, you could have a bunch of large ships in there itself, or you could have half them or all of them be swarmers, and you can just overwhelm your enemies and just pound them away. Oh, it doesn't matter if you lose half; you still have more than your enemies, and you can replenish your numbers based on the type of like the factions that they are, or whatever. So.
Oh yeah. But
That's awesome.
also consider the kind of fantasy that you write or design based on your view of the world and of the past. I think that you'll find that one, that religious people do tend to take history a little more seriously, but two, the idea of giants or the idea of slaying dragons is cool and is what stuff like D&D is rooted in.
Oh yeah. If
right,
if I don't know if anyone who doesn't know this, a lot of old fantasy writers or old fantasy book writers, they were all for the most part were Catholic or Protestant.
Yeah,
That's
and history books.
That's not controversial. Like J.R.R. Tolkien is probably the most famous, well-known individual. He was he was Protestant, wasn't he? Yeah, and
he was Catholic actually.
And then his friend was Protestant. Lewis, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and they would often fight about the two things, but they're also in a group of people who were making their own like stories, and they share them and they critique each other, and that's how both their stories end up being so good.
Yeah,
they were just critiquing each other and saying, "Well, my idea is better."
Yeah,
healthy competition.